So this is kind of the next step up from the blinking LED video, which is to make a line of blinking LEDs. And this is sort of like project 2 in the Experimenter's Guide to Arduino book. But I think this one is going to be a good place to kind of start messing around with stuff a bit and see if maybe I can figure out some, get comfortable with the program that makes this light sort of travel down here. Okay, so if this looks really easy to you, then you are watching the wrong video. So first, I'm gonna start with drawing out the sketch of the circuit diagram, and then we'll look at the code and then come back here and actually try to build it. Okay, so this was the sketch for just for the wiring diagram for the blinking LED. But I want to make a line of LEDs. So we can actually just start by modifying this. First, I'm going to go in here and erase that pin number. Okay, next I'm going to come in here, and what we want to do is actually just hook up a whole line of LEDs, and they're all going to be going to the same ground, and they will all be using the same value R1 resistor, but they're going to be going to different pins. So we are going to have 8 of these. I have no idea if this is pausing or not. Okay, so that should be 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep. And I decided to use 560 ohms just because I had a lot of 560 ohm resistors lying around that were already bent into shape. Now I started mine going from pin 2 to pin 9. Alright, and there we go. That is our circuit sketch. So I'm going to go ahead and take a snapshot of that and save it. So that's our circuit diagram. It is exactly the same as what we had before. We just added more LEDs, and they're all connected to the same ground. And now we're going to take a look at the code. Okay, so I put a pretty simple code in here. What I did from the beginning was I just defined an integer for a list of LEDs, and the pins are 2 through 9. Then in the setup part, the part of the code that we want to run once, instead of writing out pin mode LED, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I just wanted to write one line. So I say 4. So for these integer values, I, so I'm defining I to be the integer, equals 0 till I is less than 8, and then I incrementing by plus 1 So this means it starts at I equals 0, it ends at I is less than 8, and it increments plus 1. So for each of those, so for the thing that's in the regular parentheses, we do the thing that's in the curly bracket. So this is pin mode and LED pin starting at I equals 0, which up here I equals 0 corresponds to pin 2, and then it will go I++, so I equals 1, which will correspond to 3, and so forth until we get to the 8th LED pin, and since it's starting from 0 instead of starting from 1, that's going to be integer 7. And then for each one of those we do an output. Okay, then we have our main loop, our main code, and here, I can actually just take this guy up. For some reason, I don't know, I like to have this up here. Okay. So what I did was I defined an integer of a delay time to be 250 milliseconds. And you can explain why I did that in a second. Okay, so now I have another for loop, and it's the same for loop. So for integers I equals 0 to I is less than 8, increasing I by 1 each iteration, I'm going to do the stuff that's in the curly bracket, and that's going to write to pin starting at 0 and say that it's high. So that's going to turn on pin 0. Then I'm going to delay by delay time. So delay is a pre-understood function in this Arduino program. That you write delay, and then whatever you put in the parentheses, whatever number you put in there is in milliseconds. So what I did was I just have delay time written up here, so it can actually come in here and say I want it to be a longer delay time. All I have to do is change this number up here instead of changing it 2 times down in the code, which, doesn't save us too much time right now, but, in the long run, it just seems to make more sense and make everything a little bit more understandable when you come in and try to understand what the hell you were trying to do with your code that one time that you tried programming a year ago. And then after that delay time, it turns it off. So this one turns on pin 0 for a second. Then it turns off pin 0, then it waits a second. Then we come back up to the beginning, and it turns on pin 1, waits a second, turns off pin 1, waits a second, turns on pin 2, and so forth. So actually I'm going to go ahead and, we can keep this as it is. Alright, so now I'm going to go to Sketch and upload. And you see that's compiling it. It's making sure that I didn't do anything dumb like leave out a semicolon. Alright, and now it uploaded it to the board, and let's take a look. Okay, and here is the line of LEDs, and they're blinking on the board. So we start off, I have this reset button on the Arduino. Let's just go ahead and just reset that. Starts 0, pin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, because, counting from 0. So there we go. We have a line of LEDs, and we know that they're working. So let's go ahead and just take this apart and rebuild it according to the sketch. So just to make things safer, I'm just going to disconnect from ground. So that means that there's no current going in through here. Okay, so according to our sketch, let's start with our pins. So we'll just start with pin 2. And we'll just wire up each LED as I go. So that's going into the top of the board. I want that to go to the positive end of the LED. And then I want a resistor, and that resistor is going to go to ground. And this is obviously where so when you're uploading these things, if you have like the Arduino code has an error, it will generally tell you that the code has an error. And then if something in your circuit isn't working, then you can generally be somewhat assured that it's not your code problem, it's the board problem. And it's quite easy to have a problem with a board when you get a lot of components. You know, sometimes you accidentally stick one resistor into, say, the positive terminal over the negative terminal. Okay. So it does take some attention to detail, but it's also pretty easy to troubleshoot these things. So it's going to go to 13. Oops. And then of course I'm leaving the ground for last, because that's the one that's actually going to make stuff, you know, make that current flow through the board. And it's not a ton of electricity, but you know, maybe you don't want to be electrocuted for some reason. I mean, maybe you're just wussy like that, so it's easy enough to avoid, so I figured let's avoid it. Even though I've never electrocuted myself on this thing, I have electrocuted myself on plenty of other things. And there we go, that's pin 9. And these pins on the Arduino board are really hard to see. So there's our last resistor. It's going to go in there. And then the last thing I want to do is take this row here. We're going to take the whole row and we're going to go to ground. And then I went ahead and reset the program. So that resets it. It should start here and blink all the way down the line, which it looks like it's doing just fine, and then start up at the beginning, which is nice. So there we go. That was a line of blinking LEDs, and then I think maybe we'll do a couple videos after this. That's basically keeping the same circuit, but maybe focusing more on the programming side. And let's try to get the light to do a couple of more exotic things, but I have to figure out how to do that first. So anyway, I hope this is another nice, easy project that you can appreciate that is easy instead of somebody just telling you it's easy. Once you do it for yourself, then you can feel like it's easy and very satisfying, actually, even though it's a dumb thing that you just made a light blink on and off, but I find it satisfying.